Entitled Karen calls the police on my private helicopter. She had no clue who I am. You're a United States Senator, accustomed to the hustle and bustle of Washington, D.C., the weight of national decisions on your shoulders. But today, you're just looking forward to getting home, kicking off your shoes, and enjoying a quiet evening in your peaceful suburban neighborhood. As your private helicopter descends onto your FAA-approved helipad, you catch a glimpse of your neighbor, Karen, storming across her perfectly manicured lawn, her face contorted with rage. Before you can even step out of the chopper, she's on her phone, frantically dialing 911. This isn't some far-fetched movie plot. This is my reality. And what I'm about to share with you is a true story that unfolded right in my own backyard. It's a tale that would be comical if it weren't so infuriating, a story of entitlement, ignorance, and the abuse of power on a small scale that reflects larger issues in our society. You know, when I decided to install a helipad at my home, I never imagined it would lead to this kind of drama. I followed every regulation, obtained all the necessary approvals, and even went the extra mile to ensure it wouldn't disturb my neighbors. But Karen, our HOA president, had other ideas. What transpired over the next few weeks was a roller coaster of emotions and events that tested my patience, challenged my principles, and ultimately reinforced my belief in the importance of standing up for what's right. This isn't just about a nosy neighbor or a petty dispute. It's about the abuse of power, the importance of knowing your rights, and the sweet, sweet taste of justice when the truth finally prevails. Now, before we go into this wild ride, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to deal with an overzealous HOA president or a neighbor who just couldn't mind their own business? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories like this one. Let me paint you a picture of who I am and how I ended up in this surreal situation. I'm Senator Daniel Carter, and I've been serving our great state for over a decade now. My days are filled with committee meetings, policy debates, and the constant hustle of Capitol Hill. But at the end of the day, I'm just like anyone else. I crave a peaceful place to call home. That's why I chose to live in Oakwood Estates, a quiet, upscale neighborhood about an hour outside of Washington, D.C. Picture tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, and homes that look like they've jumped right out of a magazine. It's the kind of place where you'd expect to find successful professionals, retired executives, and yes, even the occasional politician seeking refuge from the public eye. Now, I love my job, but sometimes you need a break from being Senator Carter and just be Dan. That's what Oakwood Estates offered, a chance for normalcy, a place where I could kick back, fire up the grill, and maybe chat with my neighbors about anything but politics. Of course, my idea of normalcy might be a bit different from yours. See, given the nature of my work and the need for quick travel, I decided to install an FAA-approved helipad on my property. I know, it sounds extravagant. But trust me, when you're constantly racing against the clock to get from your district to DC and back, it's more of a necessity than a luxury. Enter Karen Thompson, our esteemed HOA president. Now, don't get me wrong, I appreciate anyone willing to volunteer their time for the community. But Karen, she takes her role to a whole new level. A woman in her late 50s, always impeccably dressed, with a permanent look of disapproval etched on her face. Karen's the type who measures the height of her neighbor's grass with a ruler and sends out violation notices if your mailbox is a shade lighter than the approved color palette. Her reputation? Let's just say controlling and unreasonable are the polite terms people use. There was the time she tried to fine the Johnsons for having a birthday party that ran 15 minutes past the noise curfew. Or when she attempted to ban all non-native plants from front yards, causing an uproar among the neighborhood's gardening enthusiasts. So, you can imagine her reaction when she caught wind of my helipad plans. It was as if I'd suggested turning the community pool into a toxic waste dump. Karen immediately launched into action, poring over every bylaw and regulation she could find. First came the passive-aggressive notes left on my door, questioning whether I'd obtained the proper permits. Then the not-so-subtle attempts to rally the neighbors against me, whispering about noise pollution and property values at every community gathering. The tension in the neighborhood was palpable. Neighbors I used to chat with suddenly became scarce, avoiding eye contact when we crossed paths. It felt like the calm before a storm, with Karen as the gathering dark cloud. Now, I'm curious, have any of you ever dealt with an unreasonable HOA president like Karen? What was your experience like? Did you find a way to resolve the conflict, or did it escalate into something bigger? Share your stories in the comments below. Trust me, after what I'm about to tell you next, you'll see why I'm so interested in hearing about your experiences. Alright, let's dive into the heart of this neighborhood drama. The first real confrontation with Karen happened on a sunny Saturday morning. I was in my backyard, reviewing some landscaping plans for the area around the helipad, when I heard the unmistakable sound of Karen's voice, shrill and indignant. "Senator Carter," she called out, marching across her lawn towards me. "We need to talk about this monstrosity you're planning to build." I took a deep breath, plastered on my best diplomatic smile, and turned to face her. "Good morning, Karen. I assume you're referring to the helipad?" What followed was a 20-minute tirade about noise pollution, safety hazards, and how I was single-handedly destroying the character of our quiet, respectable neighborhood. When she finally paused for breath, I calmly explained that I had obtained all necessary permits, including FAA approval, and that the helipad met all legal requirements. I even offered to show her the documentation, but Karen wasn't interested in facts. She just shook her head, her face turning an alarming shade of red, and declared, "We'll see about that, Senator. We'll see." Oh, if only I had known then what was coming. Over the next few weeks, Karen launched a full-scale campaign against me and my helipad. She went door to door, spreading misinformation and stirring up fear among our neighbors. Suddenly, there were whispers about decreased property values and concerns about safety that I had never heard before. But Karen didn't stop there. Oh no, she took it to the next level. She started filing false complaints with local authorities, claiming everything from noise violations, for a helipad that wasn't even operational yet, to zoning infractions. I found myself having to take time away from my senatorial duties to address these baseless accusations, providing documentation and explanations to bemused local officials who clearly had better things to do with their time. The harassment became almost daily. Notes left on my car, angry voicemails, even a petition circulated to have me removed from the neighborhood. It was exhausting, frustrating, and frankly, a little bit absurd. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. It was a Tuesday evening, and I had just landed on my newly completed helipad after a long day in D.C. As I was powering down the chopper, I saw Karen storming across her lawn, phone in hand, gesticulating wildly. At first, I thought she was just going to yell at me again. But then I heard her voice, clear as day, saying, "Yes, 911? I need to report an illegal aircraft landing in my neighborhood." I couldn't believe my ears. Was she really calling the police? On a United States senator? For using his own, fully approved helipad? Despite my disbelief, I knew I had to stay calm. I've dealt with high-pressure situations in the Senate, but this was something else entirely. I went inside, gathered all my documentation, permits, approvals, everything, and waited for the police to arrive. When they did, I have to give them credit, they were professional and thorough. They listened to Karen's breathless accusations, then turned to me for my side of the story. I calmly presented my documents, explained my position as a senator, and the need for the helipad. The officers quickly realized that everything was in order. But Karen was not ready to give up. As the reality of the situation dawned on her, that she had just called the police on a U.S. senator for a completely legal activity, she began to unravel. "Do you know who I am?" she screeched, her face a mask of indignation. "I'm the president of this HOA. I decide what's allowed here." The police officers exchanged glances, clearly struggling to maintain their professional composure. One of them gently tried to explain to Karen that HOA rules don't supersede federal aviation regulations or private property rights, but she was beyond reason at this point. As Karen continued her meltdown, I noticed some of our neighbors had come out to see what all the commotion was about. The looks on their faces as they realized what was happening, the embarrassment, the disbelief, and in some cases, poorly concealed amusement were something to behold. Now, I have to ask, how would you have handled this situation if you were in my shoes? Would you have lost your cool? Tried to reason with Karen? Or maybe you have a creative solution I hadn't thought of? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear your perspectives on this. You'd think after the police incident, Karen would have learned her lesson. But oh no, she was just getting started. In the days that followed, she launched a full-scale campaign to discredit me. She posted on neighborhood forums, sent out mass emails, and even tried to rally support at the local coffee shop. Her claims ranged from the ridiculous to the outright slanderous. But Karen's coup de grace? She decided to call the FAA. That's right, the Federal Aviation Administration. I can only imagine the conversation. Hello, FAA? Yes, I'd like to report an illegal helipad in my neighborhood. What's that? You've already approved it? Well, I demand you revoke the approval immediately. Now, I don't know exactly what Karen said to the FAA, but I do know the outcome. Not only did they confirm, once again, that my helipad was fully compliant, but they also informed Karen that filing false reports could result in hefty fines. The irony was delicious. The HOA's response to Karen's actions was swift and decisive. They called an emergency meeting to address the situation. I attended, of course, along with most of our neighbors. The tension in the room was palpable as the HOA president stood up to speak. In light of recent events, he began, we've had to reevaluate Karen's position as HOA president. You could have heard a pin drop. Karen sat there, arms crossed, a look of defiance on her face. Karen's actions have not only caused unnecessary distress to our community but have also exposed the HOA to potential legal risks. Therefore, effective immediately, Karen will be removed from her position as HOA president. The room erupted in a mix of gasps and barely concealed cheers. Karen, for her part, looked like she'd been slapped with a wet fish. But the HOA wasn't done. They went on to outline the potential legal repercussions of Karen's actions. Misuse of emergency services is a serious offense, and there was talk of potential fines or even criminal charges. Moreover, her false statements about me could be grounds for a defamation lawsuit. As for the community impact, well, it was like a fog had lifted. Neighbors who had been avoiding each other started chatting again. People smiled and waved as they passed on the street. It was as if everyone could finally breathe again. This whole experience taught us all some valuable lessons. It showed us the importance of standing up to bullies, even when they hide behind the facade of authority. It reminded us that knowing your rights is crucial, especially when dealing with overzealous HOA boards. But perhaps most importantly, it demonstrated how the abuse of power, even in small communities, can have far-reaching consequences. Karen's actions didn't just affect me, they impacted the entire neighborhood. They created an atmosphere of tension and mistrust that took time to heal. So, I have to ask, what do you think this experience teaches us about the abuse of power in small communities? Have you ever witnessed something similar in your own neighborhood? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear your perspectives on this. As I look back on this whole ordeal, I can't help but reflect on the broader implications of what happened. You know, it's easy to laugh at the absurdity of it all, a neighbor calling the police on a senator for using his own helipad. But beneath the surface, there's a more serious issue at play. This incident really highlighted the importance of community and mutual respect. We all live together, we share spaces, and we need to find ways to coexist harmoniously. What Karen did wasn't just an attack on me, it was an assault on the very fabric of our community. I'll be honest, this experience has changed my perspective quite a bit. As a senator, I deal with big, national issues every day. But this reminded me that sometimes, the most impactful battles are fought right in our own backyards. It's made me more aware of the challenges facing local communities and the need for clear, fair governance at all levels. Now, I want to turn this experience into something positive. So here's my call to action for all of you watching. First, educate yourselves about your rights. Whether it's property rights, HOA regulations, or local laws, knowledge is power. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to stand up for yourself if you ever face a situation like mine. Second, get involved in your community. Attend HOA meetings, participate in local events, get to know your neighbors. Building strong community ties can prevent misunderstandings and foster a spirit of cooperation. And third, if you do find yourself in a conflict, try to handle it constructively. Stay calm, document everything, and follow proper channels. Sometimes, a simple conversation can prevent a situation from escalating unnecessarily. You know, looking back, I'm actually grateful for this experience in a way. It taught me some valuable lessons. I learned the power of staying calm in the face of unreasonable behavior. Trust me, it's not always easy, but it's always worth it. I also learned the importance of documentation and following proper channels. Having all my paperwork in order saved me a lot of headaches and ultimately proved my case. But perhaps the most important lesson was this: standing up for yourself can inspire others to do the same. After I stood my ground, I had neighbors coming up to me, sharing their own stories of run-ins with Karen, thanking me for taking a stand. It created a ripple effect of positive change in our community. So, whether you're dealing with an overzealous HOA president, a difficult neighbor, or any other challenge in your community, remember this: you have the power to make a difference. Stay informed, stay engaged, and never be afraid to stand up for what's right. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it's given you some food for thought and maybe even a chuckle or two. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this one. And remember, in the words of Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.